Welcome to The Artist Matters. I'm Alex Rudy, and each week you will meet incredible artists from all walks of life. Filmmakers, writers, actors, painters, musicians, and so many more, sharing their stories to motivate and inspire the creative in you. Whether you're doing it for fun or looking to make a living, this show will help you on your journey to bring out the artist within and letting the world know that your art matters. Hi, one and all. Welcome back to another episode of The Artist Matters. I'm your host, Alex Rudy. And we are now in August. That's it. Bye, July. It was nice knowing you. Well, we had some really great episodes and great guests. And it's been quite a delight. Enjoying the summer with my granddaughter and my wife. Trying to get in some quality time. Going to a beach here and there. Catching some rays. I did get sunburned. That wasn't too fun, but I'm healed. So lots of sunblock when I go outside from now on. But anyway, let's move on to this week's guest. We're going to have another two-parter, folks. She had so much to say, and I did not want to try and edit this anymore. What she said was so valuable and offered such great insight into being a musician, singer, songwriter. And she hails from my neck of the woods up in New York, particularly Long Island, and in Suffolk County. And she is very talented. I've checked out her videos and learned more about her and really respect her hustle. She's been doing this for many, many years and tried the day job thing too, just to make ends meet. But she's a committed singer-songwriter doing her thing. So in this first part, you'll hear about, of course, her early years and how music came into her life and her favorite instrument at the time, the organ, the electric organ, to be specific. And she has funny things that she does when she sees a piano at a restaurant or someplace. Let her explain that. She'll go into detail about her writing process, how she constantly hears music. I guess she has to channel it somehow. How she deals with negative feedback, as all of us artists do at one point in time or another. And she's learned how to deal with it in her own way and how it's helped her grow as a musician and songwriter. And she goes into a little bit about musicians who don't have to starve. So there's a lot more. So forget about me. Let's get into this and begin part one of my little chat with Marci Geller. All right, welcome to the show, Marci Geller. Hi.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Oh, yeah, thanks for finally being on. It's great to have you on here. I can't even say glad. I'm trying to say glad or great. I don't know, but hey, it's good.
You created a new word. That's
glad, great, yes. Anything for a fellow Long Islander.
There you go.
Because that's where your journey began, right? On the island.
Well, actually, I was born in a hospital in Manhattan, but I grew up, childhood, it was in Queens. Mm-hmm. And then when I was 7 years old, we moved out to Suffolk County, and I've perpetually migrated easterly. So I wound up further east on the island in Stony Brook when I met my husband. And I'm wondering if I'm going to follow the migratory pattern of most Long Islanders and wind up in Florida or something.
Uh-huh.
You never know. You never know.
That's what happened to me. We're down here.
I wouldn't miss the snow, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, it's fun to play in, but not fun to shovel and drive in at all.
Yeah, exactly.
So what were your earliest creative memories? Was it music? Was it something else?
It was definitely music. My parents will always tell you how there's this documented proof that before I learned how to walk, if they put music on, I would just start like doing the twist, like sitting down. And I would go to my great aunt's, my great aunt Mimi's home, and she had a piano. And as soon as I learned how to walk, like I was walking over and plunking on the piano. So for my third, well, this is going to sound weird, but because, I am a Long Island Jewish woman, but we were not practicing Jews. And so we celebrated our version of Christmas every year, because my parents just were of the mindset that they were not going to deny their child of Santa Claus when every other kid in the then apartment building was getting gifts from Santa Claus. I also think that it was possible that they didn't want to have to buy 8 gifts for Hanukkah. It was easy to get it over on one day. So this one particular Christmas when I was 3, my parents bought me an M&E organ, which were these little plug-in organs that had buttons for chords and then notes for notes, very limited. And they woke on that particular Christmas, they had plugged it in, turned it on, and they woke that morning to their 3-year-old playing Silent Night by heart, by ear, and without using the chord buttons. Like I was like figuring out chord sort of frames with my left hand and playing the melody with my right hand. And I think that they knew at that point that I was destined to do something creative with music. So they nurtured that. My dad would buy me, xylophone, little baby, kid xylophone from the toy store. Eventually when I was 12 and we had moved out to the island, my parents got me a guitar. And, I always had this inclination to create. And what's interesting, or at least I think is interesting, is that when kids get their first instrument, I think the natural inclination is to learn songs that they hear on the radio or that their parents play on the record player, which was what we had back then. In my case, my first inclination was to write. I remember hearing songs on the radio and going, oh, I can do that. Which is like very, a very confident posture for a child to have. But that's what I did, and I think I took 6 months worth of guitar lessons, and I think the guitar teacher just told my parents I was hopeless because, he would try and get me to learn the lessons, and I just wanted to write songs. So I just drove poor Mr. Arts crazy, and he quit on me. So, yeah. I understand, he was hired to do a certain job, and I was preventing him from fulfilling his purpose in my life, So,
what you gonna do?
I remember he was sort of losing his hair, and I'm pretty certain that I was responsible for him losing almost all of his hair because he would just try to get me to like read the notes, learn to read music, and learn, the chord progressions, and then when I was 15, my parents actually got me my first piano, and it's tried again, and it just, it just wasn't meant to be for me at that point in my life. I just really had this strong urge to create my own songs. And so once they got the piano, I think that guitar, which I still have, just collected dust, perpetually, because the piano was a much easier instrument for me to pick up. It just clicked with my brain. I don't know if it's the linear quality of it, but piano was just really the first instrument that I was really drawn to. And even to this day and throughout my entire life, I have this sort of, I don't know if it's an affliction or if it's like something on the spectrum of like OCD or something, but when I walk into a room or somebody's home or a restaurant that has a piano, I have this like magnetic pull to touch the piano. Like I don't even have to always play it. I just need to make physical contact with it, and it's a weird thing. And as an adult, I've tried to be accountable and like check in with myself and say, okay, you can't just walk into someone's home and touch their piano. It's really creepy and rude, but it's very, very difficult for me to fight that desire to make contact. It's like it calls to me, like it's like almost like a physical energy pull that I feel. Like like, play me. So, yeah.
Was learning the piano challenging at first?
It was learning to read music was and still is a handicap for me. I'm not a great reader. I can read what they call a lead sheet, which is basically the chord progressions written out, not as notes, but as the actual, like, A chord, B chord, C sharp minor, whatever. That I can do pretty easily. But reading notes, and this is not an excuse, it's more of a reason. I think I have possibly like an undiagnosed level of some sort of dyslexia. Like, I don't see the notes individually, and I definitely can't see two lines of music. Like, my brain just doesn't process it, and I invert things, and it's really frustrating for me. So learning to play, and I'm using air quotes, was not difficult at all. Playing came very naturally as far as being a medium for me to write songs. I would never, ever refer to myself as a virtuoso pianist. I don't even see myself as a pianist. I see myself as a songwriter who writes on primarily piano and sometimes guitar. But learning to read music, I just have not been able to figure out how to get past this sort of block in my brain. I think it's the same area of my brain that gives me trouble with math. Like, math makes no sense to me. I can add and subtract and divide if I absolutely have to, or multiply, but like, the calculator is my friend, and so I think they say that musicians have a natural inclination towards math. I don't. I don't have I have a terrible math brain. And I think that that's the same part of the brain that processes how you read music. And I never got good at that. But I say never in a past tense because I leave a little teeny bit of space open for the possibility that maybe someday it'll click. Like, maybe I just haven't found the right meditation yet. I don't know. Something that is going to open that portal, that's going to fire those little brain cells so that I can all of a sudden, like, the aha button goes on, But so far, hasn't happened for me.
During this time, were you writing any music?
Always. That was the first thing that I did. I mean, I remember learning how to play a song, like, I remember poor Mr. Arts, I'll reference him again. I learned how to play, he would try and pick songs that I liked from the radio to play. And, but I remember, like, I would learn the song by ear, and then I would go off on a tangent and write songs. And, they weren't that sophisticated in the beginning. I think, like I said, Mommy, I really love you, Daddy, blah, 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 probably something about the cat, when you're little, you write about the things in your spectrum, things that are in your existence. And as you get older, it's interesting. I've always been a writer. Like, that's always been my form of, I guess, like, meditation, therapy, self-exploration, outward exploration. When I witnessed a movie or even a book, if I read a book and there was something that really connected emotionally with me, whether it was a character or a character's struggle, it's very often that will become fodder for a song. And, it's not always literal, but it's sparked by things that I experience and witness in the world. And I always say that my songs always contain the truth. They're not just always, it's just not always my truth, But I do think there's always a little bit of me in there. Even if I'm writing about somebody else, I think that I inject something of myself in there. I'm pretty sure that I do for the most part. Musicians